What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully, week 9 was successful for you in some way, shape, or form. Well, that would mostly be a win, but honestly, at this point, getting through it healthy is also a big win. With how many injuries continue to pile up. We will get into that. We will talk the trade deadline. We will talk Week 10 waivers. We can get into everything today. A lot of topics to discuss. A lot of things to get into. NFL trade deadline was a couple of hours ago. A couple of smaller fantasy relevant moves went down. We can talk shop on those. Of course, the fallout from this weekend, we will discuss that. Transition that into Week 10 waivers. And then, of course, as always, your questions. And then, just some general developments today as we head into Week 10. So we can go ahead and get right on into it. We'll start with injuries. The biggest two injuries that took place over the weekend were that of Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels and Packers tight end Tucker Kraft. Kraft is out for the season, suffered a torn ACL. He is done for the 2025 campaign. Was one of the top 5 or 6 tight ends that you could set and forget for the rest of the season. So that is a brutal loss, not just for the Packers, but fantasy owners as well. Kraft was shaping up to having a top 5, top 6 season at the tight end position this year. Not to be. He will miss the remainder of the campaign. Luke Musgrave, who was actually drafted ahead of Tucker Kraft a couple of years ago, will assume tight end 1 duties for the Packers. They did not make any subsequent moves to acquire a tight end in the absence of Tucker Kraft, at least not anything that I saw. Anything that they would have done would have been incredibly minor at best. So that pulls Musgrave up to the top of the pecking order, top of the tight end depth chart for Green Bay. He has talent. He obviously lost his job to what appears to be the superior player in Kraft, but now he's got an opportunity. So, if you had Kraft, if you're looking for options at tight end in deeper leagues, and especially so if you had Kraft, Musgrave might be worth a dart throw here and there. But obviously, we're stepping into a bit of uncharted territory. Musgrave hasn't been really relevant since his rookie season, and even that was flashes and up and down play. I think surrounded by some time missed due to injury. So we'll see what Musgrave can do there. Jordan Love takes a slight hit there, although the reemergence, the return of Christian Watson has kind of eased that. Keeping the options available, the weapons that the Packers have plentiful and plenty of options. You don't have to pivot off Jordan Love as QB1, as your QB1 in fantasy, even with the loss of Kraft. But obviously, it hurts. And then at quarterback, Jaden Daniels suffered a dislocated, was it an elbow or an arm? It was a nasty injury. It was to his non-throwing arm. So if there's any saving grace there for Daniels, not just short-term but long-term prospects as well. However, he will miss time. I do not think Washington put him on injured reserve, so there may be some optimism that he can return sooner than later. I think I saw somewhere on Twitter that he would have to, in order for him to be on the fast track to recovery, he would have had to have not torn any ligaments in addition to the dislocation. I'm not sure if we've received any specific confirmations on that. I'm sure an MRI is either underway or an MRI. Well, yeah, whatever. I think an MRI is typically for your head, but I think it'd be for other body parts as well. I'm not a doctor. Feel free to fact check me on any medical stuff that I talk about. Nevertheless, if it is a clean dislocation, obviously it was still a nasty looking injury, then he may be back within a month's time. But if again, I'm just paraphrasing what I saw from Twitter, if there are ligaments torn, he's going to miss more time. Didn't go on injured reserve, so we'll keep an eye on that and obviously hope for a speedy recovery. Things are not going Washington's way this year. They're spiraling out quickly. Marcus Mariota will have to keep them afloat at 3-6 for it makes sense for Jaden Daniels to come back at some point this season. He will be without his top wide receiver probably through the bye week. It was already reported last week that Terry McLaurin is likely to miss another couple of weeks, and with Washington having a Week 12 bye, he's probably going to be held out until that point. They also lost Luke McCaffrey to a broken collarbone, so Washington's offense continues to be razor thin and pretty devoid of talent. You've got Deebo Samuel, you've got Zach Ertz. The run game has been pretty non-existent this year. Jeremy McNichols has given them a little bit of a boost as a receiving back. If all this to say, if you had Jaden Daniels, you were relying on Jaden Daniels. He was your stud QB1 that you were leaning on in one quarterback leagues. I would be making permanent alternate plans just to prepare yourself for a worst-case scenario. If Washington does not get back into the playoff race, it doesn't really make much sense to rush their franchise quarterback back in a year where he's already suffered multiple injuries, taken a lot of hits, and missed numerous games. So obviously we'll see how things shake out and play out in Washington, but the current forecast isn't great. Another quarterback, could be an injury, could be a not injury, could be just he's not good. Kyler Murray will not be starting for the Arizona Cardinals this week against the Seattle Seahawks. Jacoby Brissett earned the starting job after, a string of good performances, a run of good showings, the last one being last night against the Dallas Cowboys. He accumulated 3 touchdowns on the way to leading Arizona to an upset win over Dallas. The writing kind of felt like it was on the wall last night just based on that. Like, why go back to Kyler Murray? You just beat the Dallas Cowboys, and you had a competent passing game to show for it. New updates came out that Kyler might not be 100% healthy yet, may need more time to recover from the foot injury. That could be real. That could be smoke and mirrors, like a soft benching. It doesn't really matter at this point. Jacoby Brissett, that's his job for the foreseeable future. I don't know that it's necessarily his job for the rest of the year, but what has Kyler done to deserve getting it back, barring a complete and absolute meltdown from Jacoby Brissett? So you can feel better about Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison and even Michael Wilson in deeper leagues. Now that Brissett is the starting quarterback, presumably moving forward, than you would feel about Kyler. Kyler you would feel better about if you have Kyler. But if you have the Cardinals' weapons, now you feel better about those weapons. Kyler hasn't been getting it done this year. Now he's benched. Whether that's injury-related or not, who knows? Those were, I think, the major injuries, at least that were fantasy relevant. Joe Alt, another one. Had already missed time at the start of the season, but he was able to make his return eventually. Unfortunately, that was short-lived for the Los Angeles Chargers. Their franchise left tackle will undergo season-ending ankle surgery, will miss the rest of 2025. That hurts, obviously, the Chargers' offense in general when you are now down both starting tackles that you intended to go into the season with. They did swing a trade to acquire Trevor Penning from the New Orleans Saints. So at least they are getting a little bit of help, I guess, in the wake of losing Joe Alt, but that's a far cry, as far as like talent level tier break. So that's a big one. That's going to impact Justin Herbert. He's going to have to get the ball out really quickly rest of the way. Maybe that's good for Ladd McConkey and Gadsden and Keenan Allen and the like. Those were the injuries. The trades that went down. There were a few trades that went down today. Jacoby Myers gets traded from Vegas to Jacksonville. Rashid Shaheed gets traded from New Orleans to Seattle. I think I prefer the situation for Shaheed. Naturally, I put Torrey Horton on the cover of the image for this stream. Horton is the probably biggest loser of the Shaheed trade. Horton probably moves down to 3 in the pecking order. I would be willing to bet he could stay ahead of Cooper Kupp on the depth chart if and when Kupp returns. Kupp is at the end, nursing lots of injuries at this point of his career. He may not necessarily be a starter when he comes back. It could be Horton in 3 receiver sets with JSN and Rashid Shaheed. We will see. But Shaheed presumably steps in as an immediate starter, reunites with his old offensive coordinator, who probably, I can only imagine, pushed for Shaheed at the in the final hours of the trade deadline. Seattle needed a wide receiver anyway. They get one in Shaheed. He goes from a bad offense in New Orleans to one of the better ones in Seattle, and one of the better quarterbacks who's playing at a high level right now in Sam Darnold. I feel quite good about this for Rashid Shaheed. So if you have him, I think he bumped up a little bit as far as value. As for Myers, we know Myers is talented, still just 28 years old, going into a situation where he will also resume, step into a starter's role in the absence of Travis Hunter, having gone on injured reserve, missing at least the next 4 games for the Jaguars after suffering an injury in practice last week, a non-contact one at that. Myers back on the wide receiver 3 flex radar. Jacksonville's offense isn't great. I guess Trevor Lawrence is better than Geno Smith, so that sort of helps Jakobi Meyers. And Myers himself has wanted to be traded basically since the offseason. So, I don't know if this is the landing spot that he had hoped for. It doesn't matter. It's done. It's sealed. It's delivered. Maybe a change of scenery, regardless of where he ended up, will do some good for Jakobi Meyers. Solid offensive mind in Liam Cohen that he gets to go to. And again, opportunity is wide open. Travis Hunter is down for the count. Brian Thomas is nursing injuries and honestly hasn't looked that good this year. So who's to say that Brian Thomas even holds off Jakobi Meyers? Will he? I guess probably, but it's not out of the realm of possibility based on what we've seen from Brian Thomas this year that Jakobi Meyers comes in and puts a serious dent into his opportunities. We shall see. Those were the big trades as it pertains to directly players that are on fantasy teams. The Jets unloaded a lot of defensive talent. A bad offense maybe is forced to keep their foot on the gas, whatever that looks like with Justin Fields. With no Quinnen Williams and no Sauce Gardner moving on to greener pastures. Quinnen Williams goes to Dallas. They may not be the run funnel or pass funnel that they have been for the first 8-9 weeks of the season. Still a team that's pretty devoid of talent in the secondary, but they do beef up their pass rush and the interior of the defensive line. So Dallas's defense still targetable, but got a lot better. And then Sauce Gardner goes to the Colts. Their defense gets better. The Jets' defense gets a lot worse. So, Breece Hall, who also wanted to be traded, maybe his prospects for the rest of the season are actually decent just because the Jets are probably going to get a lot of points scored on them the rest of the way. So Breece Hall may be looking a little bit better just based on that. Oh, and A.D. Mitchell was traded to the Jets as well. Decent opportunity for A.D. Mitchell, actually, in deeper leagues. Has flashed some talent, has flashed some upside, was an interesting, rookie last year that people had their eye on, but the passing offense went in the tank because Anthony Richardson, wasn't good. And then he ended up getting buried. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce were all ahead of A.D. Mitchell and stayed ahead of A.D. Mitchell on the depth chart. Now he gets a wide-open opportunity on the Jets. I mean, we've been lamenting the Jets all season long about how they don't have a wide receiver 2 behind Garrett Wilson. So screw it, right? if you're the Jets, why not immediately make A.D. Mitchell a full-time player and see what you have there? Because you already know what you have in the likes of Alan Lazard and whoever the hell else they have there. A.D. Mitchell worth, probably not 10-team leagues, but deeper leagues that are looking for some wide receiver help. A.D. Mitchell might be a sneaky guy to take a look at. I can't imagine he doesn't get a full-time opportunity. Now, he has the same issues with New York that he did last year with Indianapolis. There's no quarterback on the roster that you can confidently trust to get the pass catchers the football on a consistent basis. But from an opportunity perspective, A.D. Mitchell could be worth a look in deeper leagues for anybody who needs some wide receiver help. And then in super, super deep leagues, speaking of Jacoby Myers, you could put Jack Besh on your watch list, but he hasn't really done all that much. And then for the Saints with Rashid Shaheed's departure, that hurts Torrey Horton, but I guess it opens things up for guys like Mason Tipton. I'm not picking anybody up on the Saints, though. It's a bottom 3 offense in the NFL. Chris Olave is the only relevant fantasy player there, and teams can now just plan to double him with no Rashid Shaheed. It could be rough sledding for Olave from here on out. And I think those are all of that's the injury fallout and the trades that took place today. As far as waiver wire pickups for this week, and of course I will talk to you all individually about your own personal situations, but just some overarching thoughts for the waiver wire this week. I had Torrey Horton on the graphic. He looked great on Sunday Night Football against Washington. And then, like, an hour later, the Saints traded Rashid Shaheed to Seattle. So that fanned the flames a little bit, or the opposite, excuse me. It kind of threw some cold water on the flames, is what I should say. I still like Torrey Horton. I like his talent. He was drafted by the team and has been there, obviously, since training camp, so he's a little bit more acclimated with the system in all likelihood. However, again, it is the same offensive coordinator, Kubiak, that Shaheed worked with and played with in New Orleans, so there's going to be some familiarity, some continuity there, even though Shaheed hasn't been with the team up until this point. So I do think Shaheed can be an immediate contributor. I still like Torrey Horton, but he's probably not a priority waiver wire at this point. In fact, you might be able to get him for free. He should be able to clear waivers now that Shaheed is there. But it wouldn't surprise me for Torrey Horton if Torrey Horton stayed ahead of Cooper Kupp on the depth chart, who is dealing with a lot of injuries and is just simply not the same player that he was in L.A. So I don't hate Torrey Horton, but he's not as intriguing of a pickup as he was prior to the Shaheed trade. Top waiver wire pickup this week is probably, last week it was Tyrone Tracy, and then lo and behold, it was Devin Singletary to kind of lead the Giants' backfield. This is going to be a backfield in all likelihood that rides the hot hand each week. Neither of these players are anything special. I thought Tyrone Tracy made more sense just because the Giants at 2-6, are they now 2-7, are in full evaluation and development mode, or at least they should be, and therefore getting a longer look at some of their younger players. On the other hand, though, Coach Daboll is coaching for his job. That's what you would think anyway. He's had a long rope, a long leash up to this point, and the Giants have not won a ton with him beyond one season they made the playoffs. It's been all downhill since then. So maybe he does trot the veterans out there a little bit more than you might expect. But Daboll is pretty much lame duck head coach status right now. He's going to have to do a hell of a job to prove that he deserves to keep the job and continue coaching Jackson Dart into his second season. So maybe he does trot Singletary out there a little bit more than you might expect. He's worth a look again, we always need running back depth. always looking for turning over every stone, looking through every possible avenue we can to find running back depth. Devin Singletary is not that flashy. I think at this point of his career, he doesn't really give you all that much, and this Giants offense as a whole is not that good. Without Malik Neighbors, without Cam Scatterbo, obviously Dart shows tons of promise, but they're just down all of their weapons right now. So there's only so much that they can do. So Singletary worth a look on the wire. We always need running back depth. I don't care what your backfield looks like. I don't care what your running back options look like. Everybody needs running back depth. It's going to be gross. It's going to be impossible to trust to fire up Singletary or Tracy any given week, but I might as well give myself the option in case one or the other does emerge. And if I have the one that emerges, great. I can put him into starting consideration. If I don't, then I can drop him for the next guy. Singletary, the top guy. I mentioned Christian Watson and Luke Musgrave for the Packers. Watson, more the primary guy to take a look at. Love's deep threat appears to be back in full swing, and I think it's a pretty favorable schedule for him down the stretch. So he's worth a look. If you need some wide receiver depth, I would take him over Torrey Horton, especially now because of the trade of Rashid Shaheed to Seattle. And then, of course, Musgrave. If you had Tucker Kraft, if you miss out on Colston Loveland, and I'll get to him shortly, Musgrave, probably a relatively cheap waiver wire pickup if you're looking for some tight end help. And, you can't swing a trade for anything. I know Musgrave is, of course, out there. But he's not the top waiver wire at tight end pickup anyway this week. That would probably belong to Colston Loveland, who finally broke out. Yes, it was against the Cincinnati Bengals, but he had a very strong game. 6 catches. I think he went over 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Broke multiple tackles on his long touchdown run at the end of the game. That was awesome. That was excellent. It was a nice little okay, this is why they drafted him 10th overall. Little reminder. Loveland spent much of the offseason and training camp rehabbing from an injury that he suffered in his final season at Michigan. So it's not like a total surprise that he got off to a slow start. It was still kind of disappointing, especially when we saw what Tyler Warren was doing in Indianapolis. But maybe we're rounding the corner a little bit with Loveland now that he's got some experience. He has moved further away from the injury. He has moved further away from rehab and is more, doing a little bit more just straight up football activities. Loveland in that offense. Cole Kmet, I think, suffered a concussion. That was one I missed, so he could miss Week 10 if, in fact, he does. Loveland on the streaming radar, especially, again, if you had Tucker Kraft, or if you've got Travis Kelce is on bye this week, Jake Ferguson is on bye this week. The Bengals don't have a relevant tight end, and the Titans don't either because Chika Okonkwo has been hurt as well. So if you had Tucker Kraft, if you have Travis Kelce, if you have Jake Ferguson, and you're looking for a flyer at tight end, Loveland looks like he's officially on the streaming radar, especially if Cole Kmet cannot go. Parker Washington could have been, we talked about him over the weekend, expanded opportunity in the wake of Travis Hunter's injury. Obviously, the Jacoby Myers trade threw some cold water on those flames. So Parker Washington, not really on the radar for me at this point. Feel free to hold him through waivers if you would like, just to see what becomes available after waivers clear. But in all likelihood, you could probably move on from Parker Washington if you picked him up in hopes that you could stash him again with Travis Hunter's injury. And then, quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy looked really good against the Detroit Lions. Sam Darnold killed it against the Washington Commanders. He's got a good matchup this week against Arizona. Who does Minnesota have this week? I should know this. Don't worry, I'm going to tell myself. Oh, yeah, Baltimore. That's right. I knew that. And it's at home. So that's a pretty good matchup for McCarthy. The Ravens did make a couple of trades to try to shore up their defense a little bit. Jones from Tennessee, the edge rusher. So we'll see if that pays off immediately. But on paper, favorable matchups for both guys, McCarthy and Darnold, if you We're relying on Joe Flacco, who's on bye. If you're relying on Patrick Mahomes, if you're relying on Dak Prescott and you're looking for a quarterback to fill in, Darnold at home against Arizona, feel good about that. McCarthy at home against Baltimore, I feel good about that. I would probably lean Darnold. He's been playing better for longer this year, but if you miss on Darnold, McCarthy should be a cheap alternate guy that's available to you. Okay. I just talked for a while. Hold on. Why did my there we go. Give me a second. Stupid technology. Okay, I'm back. I covered the injuries. I covered the trades. I talked about overarching waiver options. Obviously, the size of your league will depend on, whether some of those guys are available or not. So if you have a specific situation that you would like to discuss, we can get into it. Let's get into your questions. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you are here for the first time, welcome in. It's nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Members will get first priority in responses to questions and comments. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. No matter when they send their question, it could come minutes after yours. I will get to that one first. If you are interested in becoming a member, it just is 99 cents a month to get that, to get that fast track access to faster questions. You can find those details in the first link in the description of this live stream and all videos and streams on the channel. If you are not a member, but you are feeling generous enough to send a super, that would also be a line jumper and a way to get your question answered in priority order. If you are not a member and you do not send a super, I will still answer your question, but I do ask for some patience from you. I will not be calling out your usernames. That is also a member perk. And it will come after members and supers are answered. But I promise I will get to it eventually, so I do just ask for some patience. Whether or not you are a member, if you are enjoying the stream, the dialogue, the conversation, all that good stuff, if you could just like the stream, that helps me out for algorithm purposes. Appreciate that in advance. The members I see Nino, I see Evan, I see Sport Dog, I see Bobby, and I see Greg. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for popping in, and everybody for taking the time this Tuesday evening to talk shop. Let's talk some football. Everything's on the table. Trades, waivers. Not as much start-sit. If you have a start-sit question, we just don't have a ton of information to go off of right now. I say this every Tuesday. I ask and encourage you to hold your start-sit questions until at least Thursday, when we at least get a couple of days of practice reports and injury updates kind of into the hopper that we can take a look at to help make our decisions. But waivers and trades, general discourse, always on the table. This is a trade question from Nino. Send Cortland Sutton, Emeka Egbuka, and Travis Etienne for Puka and Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's a nothing for me, so this would basically be a 3-for-1. You giving up Sutton, Egbuka, and Etienne for Puka. You have Taylor. You have Kyron. You would be giving up Etienne without getting a running back in return. Pollard is not much of anything. Spears is solid, but he is held back because of two things: Tony Pollard and how anemic the Titans' offense is. So your running back depth, Nino, is a little thin. It would become even thinner if you gave up Etienne. You have Jamar Chase, stud. You have Cortland Sutton, solid. You have Emeka Egbuka, stud as far as I'm concerned. Keenan Allen's kind of fallen off a little bit, but he's decent depth. DJ Moore, decent depth. Tez and Jalen Knoll, okay, whatever. And then you have Tyler Warren at tight end, who didn't have a great day this past Sunday, but has been a top 5 tight end on the season. You are not complaining about Tyler Warren. I love Puka. Puka's awesome. Best wide receiver in football. This feels like a little too much to give up without getting a running back in return. Even if it was some scrub running back, just to get a warm body back to add to your running back depth. The Jags did not trade Travis Etienne. And he's generally looked pretty good. He's been the victim of some bad luck. and that's going to feel gross in the box score. When you look at his final numbers, you're going to think to yourself, this is annoying, this is frustrating. Where's the guy that was popping off early in the season? Didn't he get stopped on the 1-yard line on 3 different occasions this past game against the Raiders? That's just crazy bad luck. He's going to remain the Jags RB1 for the rest of the season. I don't love giving up a running back without getting one in return in such a trade where I'm also giving up other assets to just get one asset back. And it's a big one. Don't get it twisted. Puka is a top 2 or 3 wide receiver the rest of the way. But you already have one of those other top 3 in Jamar Chase. You have Emeka Egbuka, who is a top 8 wide receiver rest of the way for me. He's been that good. You could argue top 10. I don't think he's lower than that. He's been that good. And then Cortland Sutton is solid depth. I would look to trade Cortland Sutton in a smaller deal to boost up your running back depth, Nino. That's what I would be doing. And the guy that I like quite a bit, if you can get him, it's going to be tough. Actually, it's probably going to be really hard after this past week. But, man, would I like to add Jaylen Warren. He's getting a ton of receiving work. He's accumulated a couple of rushing touchdowns after this past weekend. His usage has been excellent. Caleb Johnson is an afterthought right now. Kenny Gainwell is still getting in there, but Jaylen Warren is getting the valuable opportunities and the pass catching opportunities and the goal line opportunities. I want to make a trade to get him. Sutton's not going to be enough to get it done. And I don't want to give up Egbuka. But I would be looking to acquire a running back just to add to your depth, Nino, because JT, Kyron, and ETN is great, but Pollard and Spears doesn't really give you all that much at this point. I would be, if you're going to do anything, I would be seeking that 4th running back. You also got offered Montgomery and Parker Washington for May. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I might do that for Dart, although Parker Washington just lost a ton of value. I might be interested in David Montgomery for Jackson Dart, who has been awesome, but Drake May has been a little bit better. And that's to say both have been good. May has been outstanding. Drake May looks like, at least for fantasy, I don't know if he's in that NFL conversation yet, but he looks like a top 5 fantasy quarterback for the rest of the season. Dart is probably closer to top 10, which is excellent, but May is top 5. I would be maybe more interested in doing Montgomery for Dart, but not for May. Not for May. And again, yeah, Parker Washington does nothing for me at this point. He just lost a ton of opportunities in the trade of Jacoby Myers. Daniels, here's the issue with Daniels. I don't know that it's necessarily him. Washington did a terrible job surrounding him with the appropriate level of talent needed to appropriately build a team. You've got a quarterback on your rookie contract. Why not try to surround him with some young talent? Instead, they traded a bunch of draft capital for these older players who all got hurt. Marshawn Lattimore's out for the season. Debo, I guess Debo's been somewhat durable, but he has clearly lost a step. You paid Terry McLaurin, that's great, but he has missed a ton of time this year. And you traded draft capital for Laramie Tunsil. I guess that's been fine. But has it been that significant of an upgrade for Washington? They're sitting at 3-6, so you tell me. I don't think Washington did a great job surrounding Daniels with younger talent. It's all older talent who has been in and out of the lineup. Zach Ertz, I love Zach Ertz, but he's 125 years old. There's not anybody that gives this team like some juice, some burst. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the 7th round rookie who was he was the preseason darling what feels like the past 5 years as far as one of the more hyped players coming out of the preseason. He's not really contributed all that much, and maybe it's unfair to him to expect all that much, but the team did trade away Brian Robinson, and then again, another older player on the roster, Austin Eckler, tore his Achilles and has been out since week 2. So now Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is thrust into this role where he probably it's too early for him at best. That might be being generous to the rookie. It's just I think the offseason is why we're at where we're at with Washington, and I wouldn't blame Jaden Daniels for feeling like I got to do everything for this team. And he's accumulating 1 million hits, and look what happened. Look what happened. Let's see. Sport Dog is in an 8-team league, so if you're in a super shallow league, yeah, I think it's fair to say you can let go of Kamara. 10 and 12-team leagues, he's harder to get rid of, but in shallow leagues, I mean, Alvin Kamara is an RB4. Yes, he is solid depth, but he's got very little upside, almost none. I don't know who's available to you, Sport Dog. I'm not sure who the guys are that are on your wire, so feel free to follow up and let me know, and we can talk shop. There might be some names that you give me, and I might tell you, you know what, just keep Kamara, because at least he's running back depth. And at the end of the day, running back depth is valuable, even crappy running back depth. Unfortunately, that's where we're at with Alvin Kamara. He's been a stud. He's been a stalwart. He's a fantasy Hall of Famer for the years of top-flight RB1 production that he has provided for the past decade. But we know how this goes, right? Running backs don't go downhill. They fall off cliffs. We may be at that point with Alvin Kamara. He's 29 going on 30 on one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and they just traded their deep threat in Rashid Shaheed. I don't think the grass is going to get any greener. It's not like anything is going to improve for the Saints offense from here on out. They're 1-8. They're not that good. They're starting a 26-year-old rookie. It's Chris Olave, Jawan Johnson, I guess Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, and it's all like, this offense would have been great in 2022. 2021, it's not that anymore. These weapons would have been good anyway. I don't know about Shuck, but yeah, it's a rough go of it for New Orleans right now. So I don't know who's available to you on the wire, Sport Dog, but let me know. We can talk about it. You want what? Yeah, Flacco over Lawrence. I mean, Flacco cooked against the Chicago Bears. I mean, you can rock with Flacco as a QB1 the rest of the way. I know they're on their bye week this week, but once they come back, don't drop Joe Flacco. If you have Joe Flacco, hang on to him through the bye week, unless you're desperate, unless you are like, there's nobody else I can drop, and I just need a quarterback this week because I need a win because I'm 3-5 or 4-5 or I'm 500 and I'm scratching and clawing for the playoffs and I just need a guy this week and there's not anybody else available to drop. All right, fine, but I'm keeping Joe Flacco, throwing the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for the rest of the way. As far as Shaheed, I mean, yeah, so we have to get a feel for this as the week goes on. Shaheed has a chance he's probably going to fly to Seattle tonight. He could practice tomorrow, which would be great. If he's able to get a full week of practice in and we're liking the vibes, we can cross that bridge when we get to it, but we got to see what the vibes are. If the coaching staff is like, Shaheed looks great, he's going to be a part of the game plan right away, he's not going to be on any type of snap count, we trust him, we're going to just throw him out there against Arizona, and Sam Darnold is playing great, so we feel good about that, then, who knows? We might be firing up Rashid Shaheed. I feel better about Rashid Shaheed, getting 3 days of practice with Sam Darnold than I do having a whole offseason with Tyler Shuck. Sorry about it. You might be able to fire Shaheed this week. We'll see. Okay, Bobby, you're lost by that's just a bad break. I'm sorry. We've all been there. We have all suffered brutal, agonizing defeats of 1 point, 2 points, fractions of a point. It rips your heart out. We've all been there. It's a bad break. It's a tough pill to swallow. But we move forward. I mean, you have Love. Like the Packers have a good strength of schedule the rest of the way that is pretty fantasy friendly. So you can move forward with Love. Jacobs, RB1. Javonte, like probably top 12 rest of the way. He's been great. Dowdle looks like a top 12 guy rest of the way. Trey Benson's, updates, his injury updates have been less than ideal. They've been pretty uninspiring. It sounds like he may need a little bit more time to get right, to get healthy. At this point, I guess I'm hoping for like a week 12-ish return for Trey Benson. Obviously, we hope it's sooner, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play week 11. So maybe, I think he has to miss this week. If I'm remembering correctly, he has to miss week 10. But even if he doesn't have to miss it, it sounds like he's going to. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead and assume maybe he's not back week 11 either, and maybe week 12 will be the first time that we get to see Trey Benson back since he was placed on injured reserve. So you keep holding, you keep stashing. Those updates haven't been great. Kamara, again, he's an RB4. He's depth at this point, I guess. And Harvey looks quite good. I still like your team, Bobby. I still like your wide receivers. McBride gets a boost with Jacoby Brissett in there. Jacoby Brissett it elevates the Cardinals' passing offense in a way that Kyler Murray does not. You feel better about Trey McBride. You feel better about Marvin Harrison with Jacoby Brissett in there. So you are already going with McBride as your slam dunk, no doubt, tight end anyway. Now you feel even better about him if that was possible. He was like a couple of plays here and there from having an even bigger day last night. I think he got, it was questionable coverage in the end zone for what would have been a second touchdown. They didn't call a foul. I was okay with it. It was kind of bang bang. If he comes down with that ball, he has a huge game. And then I think there was another drop in the end zone. Maybe not totally his fault. Anyway, you're not crying over that. Trey McBride rocks, is awesome, and is even better with Jacoby Brissett in there. It's a good squad, Bobby. I would hold the fort. I wouldn't do anything drastic. The receivers are good. The running backs are good. You have a solid quarterback in Love. You have a high-end tight end in McBride. You're solid. You're good. Do I think Taysom Hill will start doing Taysom Hill things again? They'll probably continue to put him out there in that fullback, wildcat quarterback hybrid package that they have for him. They did it somewhat against the Rams. Maybe you feel a little bit better about him at home. But, again, outside of Chris Olave, I don't really want a piece of that Saints offense. And even Olave, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a rougher go of it for the rest of the way, because there's no Rashid Shaheed on the other side for defenses to worry about. You can pretty much double Chris Olave, and you're shutting down half of the passing offense on a bad offense. So, I don't really want a part of New Orleans offense, even if Taysom Hill offers you some versatility at the tight end position. McCarthy or Love, both now and rest of season. McCarthy looked good against the Lions. He did. Credit to him. His first two games of his career, the first two games of this season, were not that good outside of one quarter. And then he went on to miss the next 6 games or 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Some of that could have been the Vikings kind of pulling back on McCarthy and saying, let's get him some more time on the bench to, not just heal from the injury, but also continue to learn, continue to soak up information. Let's not put him out there too soon before he's ready. He definitely looked better against the Lions this past week. Tough spot to be in, too. That's a good defense that he played well against. But we just don't have the track record yet to go off of with McCarthy. I think a lot of people, McCarthy has a lot of believers in him, and rightfully so. His talent has certainly flashed. But I'll still take Love. He's got a little bit more of a pedigree, a little bit more of a track record, and he's got a solid schedule rest of the way. He's got a solid schedule rest of the way. And then is Kamara droppable? Yeah, so, if you're in an 8-team league, like Sport Dog's in an 8-team league, like shallow leagues where talent is on every roster and you need to try to maximize as much as possible, and if you've got you've got 3 or 4 stud running backs that you can hang your hat on, okay, fine. But in deeper leagues, it's a tougher sell. I'm not crazy about Kamara. Again, he's like the RB 35 or 36 on the season. He's barely an RB 3. He's probably more of an RB 4. And on teams with good depth, he's an RB 5. I don't want to drop him, but it depends on who's available. Is somebody who shouldn't be on waivers on waivers? There were a lot of you last week who let me know that Travion Henderson was still on waivers, and I know Henderson hasn't done anything yet, but I'll take the young, fresh legs rookie upside on a good offense over, an older, declining player on a bad offense. So it depends on who's available. If you ask me, should I drop Alvin Kamara for, some random tight end that isn't Colston Loveland, or like a Darius Slayton, or like a Luke Musgrave, then I'm going to tell you no. Just hang on to Kamara and take the running back depth. It depends on, who you're getting rid of, right? Kamara's not what he was, but if nothing else, at least he is his team's clear-cut RB1. Okay, continuing to answer member questions. I appreciate everybody's patience as I work through these. Again, if you are just joining me, or if you are here for the first time, I get to member questions first, and everybody else I will get after the member questions. So I appreciate everybody's patience. I see your questions. I see your comments. I will get to them. Let's see. What's going on, Greg? Stafford over Love did work out. Stafford had a great day. He had like a 40-yard touchdown to Puka. I think he had was it multiple touchdowns to Adams. Devontae Adams is the Rams goal line running back this year. They love throwing him the ball on that little slant route when they're inside the 10. Devontae Adams, Rams goal line running back this year, in the form of that little slant that they like to run. So yeah. Stafford is a QB1 rest of the way just because he gets to throw the ball to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. So Love is as well. Like if you have both Stafford and Love, you have 2 good options and you can play the matchups. So I'm glad we made the right call for you this past week, Greg. And I know all of you who are asking me Jacoby Brissett or Bo Nix, because I think there were like 5 or 6 or 7 people last week who asked me at different times, Jacoby Brissett or Bo Nix. I told you Jacoby Brissett. So hopefully that translated into a win for you. What's going on, Rojo? Good to see you, bro. You traded Shaheed away for a 2nd and a 5th in a rebuild. Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get a first-round pick for Rashid. I love Rashid Shaheed. He's mega talented. I'm just a sucker for deep threats as well anyway. Like, if you can just run down the field and catch a 40-yard bomb, you're probably one of my 10 favorite receivers in the NFL. I love Rashid Shaheed. I love Alec Pierce. I thought I was going to love Xavier Worthy. That hasn't come to fruition just yet. Brandon Cooks was always my guy for years. Deshaun Jackson way back in the day. Yeah, if you can just run a go route and catch a 40-yard bomb and that's all you do all day, I don't care. I will vouch for you. So I'm a big fan of Shaheed. That being said, you're never going to get a first-round pick for Rashid Shaheed. So a 2nd and a 5th, you're trading him away in a rebuild. Like, that's fine. That's fine. Although I will say, I guess maybe I would hope that his value, you got this as a result of a value boost with him getting traded to Seattle. And now's probably the time to do it. He'll be 28 next year. Still in his prime for a wide receiver, but probably got about maybe 2 years left before we potentially are looking at the downturn. But Myers should fetch you, something solid. He received a boost in value with the trade to Jacksonville. Godwin, you're going to have to wait on, right? Because he just hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been healthy. So you're going to need someone. You're going to need him eventually to show up and do something just to put him back on the radar. And then, Bobby, you were offered Tet and Dowdle for Myers and Warren. I like the Warren acquisition, but I don't know that I want to give up. I don't know that I want to give up Dowdle. I think he's Panthers RB1 rest of the way. Is he not? And don't get it twisted. Jaylen Warren is a guy that I would love to have. I guess we need to clarify. It's not Tyler Warren, right? There's two Warrens, and they're both good. It's Jaylen Warren and Tyler Warren. I would hope that this is Jaylen Warren here. But I don't think I want to do that trade because I would definitely rather have Tet than Jakobi Meyers. I would definitely rather have Tet than Jakobi Meyers. So I think that Dowdle looks like a top 15 player rest of the way, top 15 running back rest of the way. Jaylen Warren does too. The difference for me is I'd much rather have Tet than Jakobi Meyers, and it is Jaylen. Yeah, I'd rather have Tet than Jakobi Meyers, Bobby, and that's what prevents me from wanting to make that deal. I don't want to trade Tet for Jakobi Meyers. And while I do want to acquire Jaylen Warren, Dowdle's not the guy I want to give up to make it happen. Maybe I'm getting greedy, but if you have Rico Dowdle at this point, it's like, just keep him. Just keep him. He looks like he's going to be an RB1 the rest of the way. I think he's cleared Chuba Hubbard. He's like third in the NFL in rushing yards. I don't think you can't take that guy off the field if you're Carolina. You have a top 3 rusher in the NFL just based on the numbers. You've got the dude who's third in the NFL in rushing yards. You got to keep feeding that guy. What's up, Nemo? It looks like, or is that now looks like switch the username to Darius. I can call you whichever you want, but good to see you. Hope all is well. Thoughts on Kyle Monangai rest of season? He showed out. He deserves a role. And I think he's going to have a regular role. I don't know if it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation in the Chicago Bears backfield, but I do know this. DeAndre Swift has never finished higher than an RB2 in fantasy for any single season. And also, he has played for Ben Johnson before back during his days in Detroit. And that was when DeAndre Swift was regularly getting put in the doghouse. I don't know if things have changed. I don't know if Ben Johnson suddenly loves DeAndre Swift, but what I do know is Ben Johnson has consistently and regularly deployed multiple backs in his backfield as part of his offensive game plan. I think he was just waiting for somebody to emerge to showcase themselves, to earn those opportunities behind, maybe even alongside DeAndre Swift. I thought it might be Roschon Johnson. It doesn't look like it's Roschon Johnson. It looks like it's Monangai. Not only is he a hold, but he may be in the flex consideration in good matchups even when DeAndre Swift is healthy. Time will tell, and it's only one game in a great matchup against Cincinnati. But we heard it from the horse's mouth just yesterday. Ben Johnson said, he's earned more opportunities. He wants to give Kyle Monangai the chance to get more opportunities, to get more work. I'm paraphrasing what he said. But the message was clear. Monangai is going to have a role in this offense moving forward, with or without DeAndre Swift. And if Swift has to miss another week, we're firing up Kyle Monangai as an RB1 this week against the New York Giants. We are. Feel quite good about Monangai. And how much does Shaheed leaving help Johnson? Yeah, so again, I'm just not... I don't really want any part of the Saints offense. And that even goes for Chris Olave, who is mega talented. But now there's no guy on the opposite side of the field. No disrespect to Mason Tipton and, Bub Means. Like, who are the other Saints wide receivers? Devon Vele, the guy that they traded a 4th-round pick for this offseason. Like, that's your wide receiver too? If I'm a defensive coordinator, I take one look at that and I go, okay, let's just go double Olave. Like, so, I think this Saints offense is going to be predictable. They're just devoid of talent at this point. Like, sure, Jawan Johnson's going to see a few more opportunities, but Taysom Hill is back healthy now, and he's going to siphon random work in his tight end, wildcat quarterback, random fullback role that he has. Jawan Johnson should still get more pure pass-catching opportunities, but Taysom Hill lines up as a tight end and runs routes occasionally too. And then I think Foster Moreau is back as well, isn't he? Jawan Johnson caught the touchdown this past week against the Rams. That was great. That was all well and good. Week to week, I do not trust the New Orleans Saints offense, and even less so without Rashid Shaheed as it pertains to Olave. Because now opposing defenses, I'm not scared of Devon Vele or Mason Tipton. I'll just double Chris Olave on every play and live with whatever happens. So, if anything, I'm trying to avoid the Saints offense. I am not trying to buy any parts of the Saints offense. It might not be a horrible idea to see if you could sell Chris Olave. If anybody has Chris Olave, it might not be a bad idea to sell Chris Olave on before anything happens, before any game action. You could just be like, oh, man, he's going to get all the targets now. Rashid Shaheed is gone. You may want to kick the tires on that and see if you can get somebody to take Olave off your hands if you have him for somebody who is in a more stable situation in a better offense, whether it's another wide receiver or a running back. You may want to take a look at that if you have Chris Olave. Just throwing it out there. Let's see. These are dynasty questions from Rojo. What position do I prioritize in a rebuild for dynasty? So in Superflex, of course, the first answer is quarterback, right? Like Superflex, the beauty of Superflex formats is it validates the importance of being good at the quarterback position, which is a direct, it's like directly related to the significance of the position in the NFL. And so I always like looking for ways to mirror my fantasy leagues around what the NFL does. Superflex, especially in Dynasty. I don't care about this as much in redraft or keeper league formats. If you want to go one quarterback, that's fine. But Dynasty, to me, you're playing forever, right? You're playing all season long. You're a GM more than you are a redraft manager when you own a Dynasty league team. That should be Superflex because it more accurately, reflects the importance and significance of the quarterback position, just like the NFL. If you do not have a good, stable quarterback situation in the NFL, you are going nowhere. The same can be said about Superflex Dynasty formats. If you do not have a stable quarterback situation, then I do not care what the rest of your team looks like. You are going to be handicapped at the most important position. So it's got to be quarterback. Is the position you prioritize in a rebuild. And then you prioritize wide receivers second. And tight ends. Running backs are last, because right, they have the highest turnover rate, they have the highest injury risk. They get used and chewed up and spit out by their teams over the course of their rookie contract, and then they let them walk. Some of them sign second contracts with other teams, some don't. Only the truly great ones, get the longevity for an 8-10 year career, but most running back careers don't last longer than 4 or 5 seasons. That's far and away last as far as building a dynasty team. It's quarterbacks and then wide receivers. Obviously, the top tight end prospects are in there as well. Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland were both first round picks in rookie drafts this past off season. The year before that, Brock Bowers was a clear cut tight end one in rookie drafts, like a first round pick in rookie drafts. Like the cream of the crop, the top tight ends can be viewed in the same vein as the top wide receivers, especially in leagues that have tight end premium scoring. Which is also a popular scoring format and scoring setting in dynasty leagues, dynasty formats. So, in Superflex, it's quarterback, wide receiver, the top tight ends, and then down at the bottom is running back. Unless a really strong prospect falls to you, right? And then obviously take a shot on the talent because you still have a trade piece potentially available to you if you have a guy that is good but is maybe not helping you win right now and has a shorter shelf life. Yeah, quarterback, wide receiver, tight ends, running back. That's like at the bottom. That's at the bottom. I'm in a rebuild in Dynasty. I have traded every single. I think my starting running backs are Caleb Johnson and like Hassan Haskins. Like I traded all of my running backs that had any semblance of value in a rebuild because it's like, get out of here. You're most likely to get injured, or maybe you're most likely to just lose your job outright at some point or other. Just get out of here. Get gone. Like you traded Jordan Mason for Caleb Johnson at a third. That was a good move for Dynasty. I know Caleb Johnson is nothing right now, but in a rebuild, you don't care that he's nothing. You want him to be scoring few points to keep your draft pick high. And then you're just kind of hoping that he emerges next year in his sophomore campaign. But of course, we'll see. As far as players that I would target, like for the future, you're looking at dart throws, right? You're looking for you're looking for super cheap guys to take a shot on that could work out eventually. And probably shouldn't be too expensive now. I just mentioned A.D. Mitchell, Rojo, at the top of the show. A.D. Mitchell, fresh start with the New York Jets. Who the hell is the wide receiver 2 for the New York Jets right now? It might be me. I'm kind of waiting for a call from New York to say we need somebody to suit up at wide receiver. Garrett Wilson is hurt. Alan Lazard is old. Who else do they have? No disrespect, but also, like, come on. A.D. Mitchell, a great young piece that shouldn't cost too much. You could throw like a third and a fourth to take a shot on him. And he's going to, if in theory, he's going to get all the opportunity that he gets. And anybody who might have him on a contending team shouldn't feel that much better about him because the Jets don't have a quarterback right now. A.D. Mitchell does not help a contender win this year. Like, that's the type of guy that I want to grab. Somebody who has a clear-cut opportunity and is still really young and at the beginning of their career. Like an A.D. Mitchell. He's going to keep your point count low, but he adds to your upside. Jack Besh, another guy. The Raiders just traded Jacoby Myers. I don't know if Jack Besh is anything as far as NFL caliber, but I have to imagine this trade opens up an opportunity for him. So it may cost a little bit more to get Jack Besh today than it would have cost you yesterday, but he still shouldn't cost you that much. Like taking these shots on these random wide receivers who get an opportunity now that it's here because a veteran has moved on. I mentioned Mason Tipton for the Saints. Like, okay, fine. I guess he fits the bill as well. I'm just not super enthusiastic about the Saints offense. Hell, I'll stick with the Saints. What about Spencer Rattler in a super flex? You could probably throw a 4th-round pick at that guy, and you might get him back. Rattler, I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's anything special, but he had very little to work with as a starter. The Saints beat reporters have spoken very, generally pretty highly of Spencer Rattler, professionalism, work ethic, all that good stuff. There are worse dart throws to take a chance on than a random quarterback who is still young and got benched in a horrendous situation for a 26-year-old rookie who probably also isn't the Saints' future. Guys like that are who I'm looking for in a dynasty rebuild. And okay, Sport Dog, so you're looking at like dropping Kamara for say like an Alec Pierce. I do want Alec Pierce. I don't really want to drop Kamara for him, but I don't know who your running backs are. You feel free to remind me. But if you have Taylor, if you drafted Gibbs in the first round and you got Taylor in the back half of the second round and you're loaded and you got, you picked up Rico Dowdle because he got dropped before he took over. trying to think. Maybe you ended up with like a Kareem Hunt. Maybe you drafted a Quinshon Judkins because he was a cheap draft pick at the beginning of the season because of the off-field stuff. Like, if your running back depth and group is loaded, sure, fine. You could cut Kamara and pick up Alec Pierce. But if your running back depth is less than, maybe it's okay, but it's not great, then I don't really want to drop Kamara, even though he's been blah. And then Nemo's got 59 fob bucks. I wouldn't spend really anything on Washington. He just lost opportunities. You're talking about Parker Washington, right? Not like a Malik Washington. I don't really want either. I mean, on Loveland, it depends on who your starting tight end is. Did you just lose Tucker Kraft? Then, maybe throw 12 to 15 bucks at Loveland. Do you have George Kittle or Brock? And I know Kittle's been quiet for the past 3 weeks, but Brock Purdy is coming back, so I still believe in George Kittle. Do you have Bowers? Do you have McBride? Do you have Kittle? Do you have Tyler Warren? If you have any of those other guys, then it's like, I don't really care about Colston Loveland. But if you are scratching and honestly, I might, if you had like TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts and you're like, yeah, I could look for an upgrade, then sure, 12 to 15 $5 on Colston Loveland is fine. Maybe more like the 10 to 12 range. I don't want to splurge. I don't want to get too excited on Loveland and then he lays an egg in a tougher matchup that isn't the Cincinnati Bengals. But especially if Cole Kmet misses, I think he's picked up a concussion. I'm pretty sure Kmet's in concussion protocol. 10 to 12. Again, if you have Tucker Kraft, maybe on the 12 to 15 range for Loveland, he could be turning a corner. You have Johnson and Barner. Yeah, I would drop like 10 to somewhere in the 10 to 15 range. You decide ultimately how comfortable you are, if you need to go on the high end or the lower end. Do you need to be aggressive? Are you 4-5 or hopefully not 3-6 or worse? But if you're like, I need bodies, I need dudes that can help me now, like maybe you spend a little bit more. If you're in good shape, if your record is solid, maybe you don't spend as much fob, try to save it for like a bigger lottery ticket potentially down the line. That being said, I would want to upgrade off of Johnson and Barner. Solid players, not difference makers. And Barner maybe just lost a couple extra targets with the addition of Rashid Shaheed in Seattle. Maybe Jawan earned a few more targets, but it's a bad offense. And then Brissett, Stroud, or Penix this week. I mean, Stroud, I think, suffered a concussion, right? So he may not play. Penix gets the Colts in London. International games are weird. Probably not that. I would probably say go Jacoby Brissett. He just got named the starter. I don't know if he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, but he might be. He's playing well. He earned the starting job. I'm sure being told this early in the week that he is the starter is a nice little confidence boost for Jacoby. He's got good weapons. Trey McBride is one of the best tight ends in football. Marvin Harrison looks like a different wide receiver with Jacoby Brissett throwing him the ball versus Kyler Murray. I mean, and Jacoby got whatever. Their backfield situation is still kind of meh. It's kind of hodgepodge. Jacoby got a little like tush-push, goal line rushing touchdown last night against the Cowboys. So he's a threat he's a threat for goal line opportunities. Brissett's not a little guy. He's not a 4'2" midget like Kyler Murray. Brissett could get in there and run some goal line, some tush-push stuff and steal a goal line touchdown here or there. I'll take Jacoby Brissett. Seattle's defense is really good. I will say that. They look good. They look for real. Their pass rush is solid. But Stroud may not play. I know Penix had a 3-touchdown game. London had a 3-touchdown game. On international game, I don't know. I'll take Jacoby, I think. I'll take Jacoby. And then Bobby, would I rather have Kamara or I would rather have Harvey. I would rather have RJ Harvey. I don't think I would say Singletary, Chubb, or Tootin over Kamara. I would rank these guys as Harvey 1, Kamara 2, and then maybe like Singletary 3, Tootin 4, Chubb 5. But honestly, 3 through 5 are that's multiple tiers lower than Harvey and Kamara. Harvey has the rookie upside and has been flashing and making big plays. That's the guy that I want to roll the dice on. Kamara is, the old wily vet who I don't think has a ton of upside left in the tank, but he's still a veteran. He's still the clear-cut top starter for the New Orleans in the backfield. He could have his games here and there. I'll put him at 2, but I would definitely put Harvey at 1. A lot of member questions. I appreciate everybody's patience as I work through these. I will get back up to the top of the order once these are through. Yeah, the Patriots did not have a good showing against the Falcons. Drake London had a lot to say about that. The Carolina Panthers, they just held the Green Bay Packers to 13 points in their house. And now they get New Orleans coming into town, who just traded Rashid Shaheed. You could take a chance on the Carolina Panthers defense this week. I can't believe those are words coming out of my mouth in 2025, but you can take a shot on the Carolina Panthers defense. They just had a great game against the Green Bay Packers. I know there were some mistakes induced by the Packers, but still, 13 points in Lambeau against Carolina is crazy. And now the Panthers get to come home and play the New Orleans Saints, who just traded their deep threat wide receiver. Yeah, you can take a shot on Carolina. That's fine for me. And then is Woody a drop? It depends on who's available. Not for Davis. Probably not for Tootin. Gainwell only if you have Jalen Warren. Wilson if you have Jacobs. Corum if you have Kyron. Okay, fine. You can, if you have, I guess even if you have James Cook and you want to grab Ray Davis, like sure, fine. If you have any one of those RB1s, if you have James Cook, then sure, grab Ray Davis. If you have Travis Etienne, pick up Bashal Tootin, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, I probably just hang on to Woody. And then you need some running back depth. Trade Kincaid to the Kraft owner for Singletary. I would rather get somebody a little bit better than Singletary for Kincaid. I don't know who that would necessarily be. Singletary had a nice day, but I'm not sure that he's the guy that I want to go after. I mean, who else does this guy have? Kamara, Adunze, that's not going to get it done. I mean, could you try to get Kincaid for Zay Flowers isn't going to get it done, but you could try Zay Flowers. I don't really want more. I don't really want Kamara, although Kincaid for Kamara would actually not be bad. That's an instance where I would say, okay, fine, roll the dice on Kamara if you can make it happen. If you can get Kamara, then I guess I would try that. But I'm not super excited about that. And no, Jerry Jeudy's not worth an ad. He's not been good this year. That's all it comes. Like I don't really want a piece of the Browns offense unless it's Harold Fannin. The Browns passing offense, excuse me. Obviously, I want Quinshad Judkins. Okay, I think that's all of the member questions that I have. So I will move back up to the top. Appreciate everybody's patience as I work through those. Do you trade Puka? Do you trade Puka, Judkins, and Montgomery for Gibbs, Igbuka, and Flowers? Holy hell. you'd be giving up 2 running backs and a top 3 wide receiver for a top 3 running back, a top 7 or 8 wide receiver, and a top 24-ish wide receiver. It's not awful. I'm not super excited about trading Puka and Judkins. And then to have to give up valuable running back depth like Montgomery for Zay Flowers, who I do like, but not more than solid running back depth. Like Judkins is probably like, Gibbs, top 3 running back, top 4 or 5 running back for sure. Overall RB1 upside. But you could say the same thing about Puka as a wide receiver. Like Puka, like top 10 wide receiver. Judkins, top 15 running back. And then Montgomery, a solid RB2 for Flowers, who's a solid wide receiver too. I'm not super enthused. I mean, it's not bad. It's not a bad offer. It's not a bad trade. But I don't really want to give up Puka and Judkins. Like, Gibbs and Igbuka would be a great return, but I'd rather have Montgomery than Flowers. Would I drop Jaden Reed for Singletary? You have Ladd, you have Waddle, you have Pierce, you have Jennings, and then you have McCaffrey, Achane, and Kamara. When is Jaden Reed supposed to come back? And obviously now Jaden Reed, whenever he comes back, could be getting a little bit more of an opportunity again with the injury to Tucker Kraft. I'm just trying to see if there's any. It doesn't sound like Jaden Reed's return is imminent. Sure. And, you have Ladd, you have Waddle. Yeah, that's you can take a shot on that. You can take a shot on Singletary. Because Reed should be a guy that if you really want to get him back, you should be able to get him back. Because he's not going to play for a while longer in all likelihood. So that's fine. I don't mind grabbing a little bit more running back depth. Should you make any moves? Well, you just lost Kyler, who is maybe I don't want to make any grand statements or anything like that, but there's a non-zero chance Kyler is a backup quarterback. Is just playing backup quarterback the rest of the way. So you're just down to Herbert, Taylor, Henry, Hill, the Seattle backfield, Singletary. Isaiah Davis is not gonna get RB1 opportunities because Breece Hall didn't get traded. Lamb, Moore, Metcalf, Nico, Kelsey, Andrews. Lots of tight ends. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would be going too crazy on doing anything here. I mean, if you wanted to get some backup quarterback depth, I guess you could try to trade Keenan Allen for some cheap quarterback, whoever that might be. I'm not trading any of these running backs. You're built to compete. You're built to compete for a championship with these guys. And running back depth is very, very valuable, so I'd rather not trade any of those. Like, I could see trading like an older Keenan Allen who has lost a few opportunities here and there over the past few weeks if you want to try to find some random quarterback depth. Something like that. But I would think the rest of this team is worthy of competing for a championship. You have Lamb, you have Nico, you have Taylor, you have Henry. Like, you have the anchors that you need to be able to win in the playoffs. But it might behoove you to try to find a QB2 because Herbert will be going the rest of the way without, not just Rashawn Slater, who he hasn't had all season, but now he's also without Joe Alt along the offensive line. So some serious offensive line injuries for the LA Chargers. You may want to protect Herbert with a viable QB2. You know, maybe try to dangle a Keenan Allen for somebody who needs some wide receiver help. All right. Where am I at? Lost Jaden Daniels, but you got Jackson Dart. Hey, sometimes timing is everything. Well done. That's a good move. You traded Parker Washington before the Jacoby Myers trade to acquire Jackson Dart. You're in good shape the rest of the season. Well done on that. How stupid are the Jets? Yeah, now they have the first-round picks to accumulate really good young talent like guys like Quinnen Williams, right? Yeah, and then, of course, they're keeping Breece Hall, who is the most volatile asset, a running back who has had injuries. Well, mostly, I guess, like the ACL from his rookie season. But still, I mean, he's probably not going to come back unless you back up the Brinks truck and give him a boatload of money, which is not advised for a rebuilding team giving a lot of money to a running back. They're not a... Sorry about it, Jets fans. They're not a well-run organization, and I know I'm not telling anybody any brand new information with that. Yes, they got a good haul of picks, but, we've been down this road before with the Jets several times. Okay. Where are we at? I think this is where I'm at. I got all the... Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I missed a couple of things. Kamara not droppable but not startable. That is correct. I didn't hear anything about Tyrone Tracy doing anything with the coaching staff, but you know, Tracy is what he is. He'll have some solid games. He'll have some down games. He's a 5th round pick that the Giants are just kind of sloshing their way to the finish line with, in all likelihood. So, yeah. But if there is a report that he did something to get himself in the doghouse, then, you know, I may have missed that. By all means, feel free to link me. Because I just did a quick search and I didn't see anything. I'm not saying you're wrong. I hadn't seen anything myself. You traded for Dart. You also have Fields, and you can pick. Yeah, I would drop Fields for Flacco. I mean, could Fields emerge in the second half as a QB1? All the pressure is off, right? The Jets have no expectations to win from here on out. Maybe he'll scramble and run around enough to muster up some QB1 performances here and there. But Dart just feels so much more. There feels like there's so much more optimism and excitement around Dart than there is Fields. And Dart is running a good amount himself. So, he's doing well what Fields does well, on top of being a much, much more competent passer. So, yeah, I would grab Flacco as a QB2 instead of Fields. I'm totally fine with that. Let's see. You picked up Henry for Goddard's bye, but Goddard's coming back, so you're going to put Dallas Goedert back into your starting lineup. Yes, I would drop Hunter Henry. If you have Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell is out there, and you have a tight end too that you don't need, yes, I would do that. I would grab the handcuff for Jalen Warren, which is Kenny Gainwell. Yes, I would do that. You don't need, once your tight end, and Dallas Goedert has been a top 8 tight end this year, he's scoring a lot of touchdowns. Once your tight end is past your bye week, just keep firing him up, and we'll worry about a tight end too if and when we have to. A running back handcuff is much more valuable. So yes, I would do that. Okay, I got lots of member questions that I got through. Who should you use your waiver on? These are defenses. Browns, Bills, Ravens, or Panthers. I mean, the Browns have the best defense here. right? The Browns have the best defense, and I just got a super, so I will jump down to that one after I answer this question. But I will finish my thoughts here first, since I have it highlighted. The Browns have the best defense here of these teams. So if you want to just go with straight talent and watch Myles Garrett just like wreak havoc on opposing game plans, and the Jets are a perfectly fine matchup to go up against, that's fine. I guess I would first see, is Garrett Wilson going to come back this week? I need to check and see what the status is of Garrett Wilson and his potential return. But, I mean, that being said, you're still getting a great matchup against like Justin Fields and a Jets team that might be like, they might be mailing it in after they just sold multiple key defensive pieces today. Wilson hasn't played since hyperextending his knee on October 12th in London, but he's expected to practice this week, giving him a chance to return. Oh, no, that was last week's update against the Bengals. So he's still... So Garrett Wilson could come back. The other side of this would be the Panthers for me. They are at home. They get the New Orleans Saints, who just traded Rashid Shaheed, and they just held the Packers to 13 points in Lambeau. I would say prioritize the Browns because they are just straight up the more talented team. But if you miss out on them, and you could probably spend a little bit less FOB, or if maybe this is a waiver priority, I guess it depends on, it also depends on how much do you need this number one waiver claim or whatever, or if it's top 3 or whatever. Would you rather wait for a clear-cut skill position player to spend that priority on, and you can kind of go week to week with defenses? Then I would say just don't use a waiver claim and pick up the Carolina Panthers because they should pass through waivers for free. But if you've got a tough, if you're 3-6 and you're scratching and clawing, you're struggling for the playoffs, and you're week to week, and you just need to get a win, and you need to get the best option, the Browns might be just that. Then okay, fine, I would say spend your top waiver priority. It depends on your situation. Yeah. I'm more likely to hold my waiver priority if I'm in good shape. And I'll roll the dice on like a second tier option for free. But if I'm scratching and clawing for a playoff spot, then okay, fine. I'll use my top waiver claim on what I think is the pickup that makes the most sense for me this week, which could be a defense. Okay, I have a super from Max. Appreciate the generosity, Max. Thank you so much. Trade Justin Jefferson for Henry and Zay Flowers. I would prefer to see the rest of your roster, or at least let me know who your other running backs and wide receivers are, because if you trade Justin Jefferson, I actually don't mind Zay Flowers as an acquisition because he's probably going to be solid moving forward now that Lamar is back healthy, and the Ravens are desperate for wins. I think they're still, they're 3-5. So they need to go on a run, and their defense has struggled. So their offense is probably going to have to keep their foot on the gas more often than not. So I don't mind the Zay Flowers acquisition. Henry is Henry. There's no explanation needed there. But then also the same can be said for Justin Jefferson. No explanation needed there. He's a top, he's a top 5 wide receiver, even with, the quarterback question marks that he's had this year. So if you're good at wide receiver, did you draft Emeka Egbuka? Did you draft Rashee Rice? These guys were 6th and 7th round picks. They could have been had by anybody, but they're clearly elite options now. Do you have strong depth at wide receiver? Then sure, fine, make the trade. But if you're, maybe if you're strong at running back and your wide receivers are hurting, then, maybe I don't make this. Then maybe I don't make this deal. In a vacuum, I probably would say yes, because you're getting a stud RB1 and a viable wide receiver who I think can be a top 24 guy rest of the way in Zay Flowers. So I do think this is a solid trade, but I would like to know, what is the rest of your team's makeup? And therefore, does it make sense to move off of Justin Jefferson? But in a vacuum, getting Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, I don't hate that. I don't hate that. But feel free to let me know what the rest of your team looks like, Max, and we can talk about it further. Appreciate the super. I have my spot in line. I'll just call out some people now. I see Natasha. I see Dustin. I see Lance. Appreciate y'all's patience. I see Jaws. I see all your questions. I will get to them. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. But I got Jay just joining me, one of my members, and I just got a very generous super from Kyle. So I got to get to those first. So sit tight. What's going on, Jay? We need a trade conversation. Let's get into it. Let's see. You have Caleb. You have Danny Dimes. You have Jacobs. You have Aaron Jones. You have Vidal. Okay. Your wide receiver depth is a little bit better than your running back depth, but not significantly. Would it be worth it making a move for a Chase and Higgins stack? That's not a stack. A stack would be, Jay, if you were to acquire Joe Flacco, or if you were to acquire Rome Odunze because he catches the ball from Caleb Williams, or if you were to acquire Michael Pittman because he catches the ball from Daniel Jones. Like a Chase Higgins, that's not a stack. That's two wide receivers on the same team. Like I have a league where I have Puka. Like I drafted Puka in the first round, and I also got Devontae Adams. He fell to me in the fourth round, and I said, "Screw it, this value is too good to pass up." I don't have Matthew Stafford in that league though, so I don't have a stack. I just have two Rams wide receivers. So I just want to clarify. That. That being said, some running backs that you can, or unless you meant Chase Brown, but even then, that's not a stack. That's not a stack either. A stack is a quarterback throwing to a wide receiver. Running backs that you can target. I mean, the first guy that I want to go after right now, and I know he just had a massive game, so the price just went up. But Jaylen Warren's schedule for the rest of the season. Let me read you this. This is for anybody who is considering trades and is looking at running backs to potentially acquire. It's not going to be easy after having such a strong game this past weekend. But Jaylen Warren, the rest of the way, gets the Chargers, the Bengals, the Bears, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Dolphins from weeks 10 through 15. Now, he does have some brutal matchups in the fantasy semifinals and the championship. On the road against Detroit week 16, on the road against Cleveland week 17. That's a tough stretch, but Jaylen Warren will at least help you get to those matchups, to get to those weeks, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, whether we want to start him in tough matchups. Like, that's the guy at running back that I would like to target if you're looking for running back targets. You're going to probably have to shell out a T. Higgins, but you might also be able to say, hey, I'll give you a Kamani Vidal or a Kenneth Walker if you give me a wide receiver in return to even things out. Jaylen Warren would be a guy that I would, I would be pushing hard to try to acquire if he happens to be available. I'm not giving CeeDee and Dobbs for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is awesome. Top 2 receiver in football. CeeDee is still top 5. It's not really a tier level drop off. He's that good. And then Dobbs is solid depth. I would probably hold what you have there in that trade. But that's not a stack. A stack is if you had Flacco, or if you traded for Rome Odunze and rocked with Caleb as your starting quarterback. Quarterback to wide receiver is the stack. But we can talk, Jay, about, if there's any other trade discussions. Jaylen Warren is a guy that's like, I know he just had a big game. It's probably going to cost you T. Higgins. But I could see about getting a wide receiver in return to make it happen. And I would be in favor of something like that. Very generous super from Kyle, so I want to make sure I get to this. Thank you so much, Kyle. Really appreciate that. Your trade deadline is this week. Holy hell, that's an early trade deadline. Let's see. You have Dimes. You have Burrow. I mean, you got a great. I mean, you have Robinson and Gibbs. You must have made a trade, unless it's a keeper league. Benson, you're hanging on to. Henderson, okay. Marks, okay. Love Rice, Tet, Diggs, Tucker, and Tyler Warren is your tight end. You offered Gibbs and Diggs for Jacobs and Adams, or was that offered to you? Gibbs is a top 4 or 5 guy rest of the way. Jacobs is a top 10 guy rest of the way. The difference for me is in the wide receivers of this deal. Because Davante Adams is a wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. I don't think I can name 12 wide receivers I'd rather have than Davante Adams. I don't think I can name 12. Feel free to try. I don't think I can do it. There are a lot more wide receivers, and I like Stephon Diggs. Kyle, but there's probably 20-plus wide receivers I'd rather have than Stephon Diggs. All this to say, I do not think I would do this trade, because you're giving, unless you're the one acquiring, unless you're the one acquiring Adams, then I would do it. If you are acquiring Jacobs and Adams, then sure. If you are getting Gibbs and Diggs, then I wouldn't do it. Okay, sorry, I see you have Gibbs in there now. Okay, let me rephrase what I was just saying. Gibbs is top 5, Jacobs is top 8 at running back. Adams is top 12, maybe top 10. Diggs is maybe like top 20 to 25. So there's a big gap for me between Adams and Diggs. So I guess what I'm saying is this is what I was trying to get to. I prefer the Jacobs and Adams side. Sorry, that's what I was ultimately trying to get to. I prefer the Jacobs and Adams side. If you can make that happen, I would be for it. I would be for it. I would be for sending Gibbs and Diggs away to acquire Jacobs and Adams. Yes, it's a small downgrade going from Gibbs to Jacobs, but it is a big upgrade going from Diggs to Davante Adams. I would be in favor of acquiring Jacobs and Adams if that is, in fact, available to you. And then, as far as other moves, I think you would be in good shape at that point. If you can swing that deal, you have Bijan, you would have Jacobs, and then at wide receiver, you would have Rice, you would have Adams, you would have Tet. I mean, the only other thing I would maybe consider doing is if this is a redraft league and you don't have an IR spot for Burrow, like, do you have an injured reserve spot for Burrow? That would be what I would want to know. If you have an injured reserve spot for Burrow, then okay, fine. But if you are holding on to Joe Burrow right now, and you're stashing him with an active roster spot, I would probably tell you to move on. I don't know how far away he is. See if there's any injury latest updates. Again, grade 3 turf toe that happened in September. 3 months was the original diagnosis, so we're looking at December 18th, 19th, 20th. That's still another 6 weeks away. I mean, Joe Burrow might come back for the fantasy playoffs. Maybe. And you don't have any stacks. You don't have Chase. You don't have Higgins. You don't have Chase Brown. If you do not have an injured reserve spot, I might drop Burrow for another running back. Just like grab more running back depth because we can always use more running back depth. You're good at running back until you're not. All it takes is one weird weekend, one unfortunate weekend, knock on wood. Obviously, we always hope everybody comes out of each week unscathed and fully healthy. But this is football. We know that that's not always a guarantee. In fact, quite the opposite. I would drop Burrow for more running back depth if you are carrying him on an active roster and not on injured reserve. That would be the only other thing I would do. But, other than that, I mean, you've got top-flight running backs no matter what. Rashee Rice is a stud. If you can't pull off this trade, then maybe you try to make a smaller move to get a wide receiver. Send Woody Marks for like a Christian Watson type. I don't know if that'll get it done, but you could try. You could try to make a smaller move outside of this big, move involving Gibbs and Jacobs. Maybe like Marks for a wide receiver if this trade doesn't go through, or just drop Burrow outright if you are holding him on an active roster spot and not on injured reserve. That would be my suggestion. But I'm happy to talk about this further, Kyle, if you want to talk any more about it, if you have any more thoughts, if you've got anything else that's the wheels are spinning. I will be live again on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. If there are any more developments that you have as you approach your trade deadline. So there will be a second stream if there's anything else then that you want to talk about. And then, of course, if there's anything you want to talk about today now while the wheels are spinning, I'm happy to talk shop. But very kind of you, very generous, super. Appreciate that, Kyle, very much. Let me know if you need anything else. Max followed up with another super. Again, if you're not a member, if you haven't said a super, I encourage you to stick around. Please do. Please don't feel like I'm skipping you. I'm not, but I got to prioritize the members and the supers. I will get to your questions, though. I just ask for some patience. Appreciate it. You have Rice and you have Igbuka at wide receiver. You have Jacobs and not much. Okay, so you've got two guys that I would consider top 10 for the rest of the way in Rice and Igbuka. You'd be getting Flowers back to help kind of supplement the loss of Jefferson, and you're picking up Derrick Henry to shore up what you kind of alluded to as not great running back depth. Yeah, Max, I'm doing the trade. I'm sending Justin Jefferson. I'm acquiring Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. I'm pairing Flowers with Rice and Igbuka. I know Rice is on bye this week, but he's going to come back and continue to be a wide receiver 1 from week 11 onward. And Igbuka comes back from bye week this week, and you get to fire him up as a wide receiver 1, borderline top 15 at worst, wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2 rest of the way. Flowers gets Lamar back, like so does Henry. Yeah, I'm good with that trade, Max. I'm good with that trade. I am good with giving up Jefferson for Henry and Flowers, given the makeup of your team. I'm good with that. Let's see what else we got here. All right, no new updates. Let's see. Jay followed up, and then I think that does it for now for member and super questions. And then I have my spot in line. Who would I rather have rest of the season between Warren and Kyron? Probably Jaylen Warren. I mean, Kyron is on the better offense, but Blake Corum is getting a lot of opportunities. Kyron's been decent. He had a great game against the New Orleans Saints this past week. I think he had 110 rushing yards and a touchdown. By far his best game of the season so far. But Jaylen Warren just had a 2-touchdown performance. And again, his schedule for the next 5-6 weeks is spectacular. Kyron popped off against the New Orleans Saints. That's awesome. That's great. He's been kind of just okay otherwise. Yes, he's getting the opportunities, but he's not, he's only got 3 touchdowns on the season so far. He's not really catching the ball outside of 1 week. He only has 1 week where he has more than 3 catches in a game. Like, Kyren is solid, but, like, that schedule for Jaylen Warren is super, super enticing. He might be the guy I prefer to have. I would want to know. Let me look at the Rams really quickly, Jay. I will give you the Rams rest of season schedule, and I will give you a definitive answer. But I do quite like Jaylen Warren's schedule rest of the way, at least until week 16, and then it gets a little dicey. Kyren has San Francisco on the road this week, then Seattle, Tampa, Carolina, Arizona, Detroit at home, Seattle, Atlanta. That's actually not bad. That's not bad. If you have Kyren, I feel like you could ask for Warren plus and get away with it. If you have Warren, I might just hold. Because the Kyren owner may ask for more than Warren to get a deal done, and I'm not interested in doing that. But if you have Kyren Williams, see if you can turn that into Jaylen Warren, maybe plus a depth wide receiver. Just humor me. Okay, I got the question about Henry and Goddard. I got all of these member questions up here. I got this defense question about waivers. Again, Cleveland, if you really need to use your top priority, just grab Carolina if you feel like you can save it. Save your waiver priority. Here we are. Would I do Pickens for Jaylen Warren and Garrett Wilson? If you could use some running back depth and your wide receiver depth is solid, I would be okay with that. George Pickens is having a really good season. He's in a great environment with the Cowboys. Their passing offense isn't going to go anywhere, I don't think, just because they acquired Quinnen Williams. Yes, their defense is better now than it was 24 hours ago. But this is still a team very much built on the strength of their offense and their ability to score a lot of points. So Pickens is very valuable. That being said, if you like your wide receiver depth and you could use a running back, I am okay with this trade to acquire Warren and Garrett Wilson. Wilson is a rock-solid, like, upper echelon throw-in in a trade to supplement the loss of Pickens while also picking up a running back that I really like for the next 5 or 6 weeks. Yes, I would be okay with this as long as you're not, hurting at wide receiver. If you're hurting at wide receiver and you like your running back depth, then maybe don't do this trade. But if you like your wide receiver depth, I would do this deal to acquire Warren and Garrett Wilson. Yes. I got the member questions. I promise I did not skip. Again, for anybody who is joining me for the first time, or maybe you're not familiar with my approach or how I go about doing things, I know it can feel a little jumbled sometimes. I do go to member questions and supers first, but I promise I will get to questions. To everybody's questions. How much does Olave move up rankings with Rashid Shaheed gone? Yeah, so I'm not bullish on the Saints offense. Now that Shaheed is gone, yes, Olave should soak up even more targets. But you know what else is likely going to happen? Defenses can key on Chris Olave even more than they already were because Shaheed is not there to take the top off and stretch the field. They are going to replace Rashid Shaheed in the starting lineup with some combination of Devon Vele and Tipton and Bub Means and whoever else they have there. Who is the Saints wide receiver depth chart? What does that even look like right now? I think I just named the guys that are relevant. The point is, you can double Chris Olave and live with the results of whatever else happens. I'm not. And they still have Brandon Cooks. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Why didn't the Saints trade Brandon Cooks? Like, they're 1-8, and Brandon Cooks is old. Like, you couldn't get a 7th-round pick for him. Whatever. I'm not a GM. I can't. Whatever. Bub Means is on injured reserve. There you go. They got a lot of guys on injured reserve. Jalen Polk is on this team, but also on injured reserve. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's Chris Olave, Mason Tipton, Brandon Cooks, and Devon Vele. So, you hear those other names and you think to yourself, I'm just going to double Chris Olave, and I will live with the results from the other players. I'm not moving Olave that far up my rankings. In fact, I would probably consider looking to sell him if you can, for either another wide receiver or some running back help. Get out from a situation where it's a good player but on an abysmal offense and try to find a player on a better offense. Just roll the dice on a better scenario for the rest of the season. I would actually be looking to sell Olave if there's somebody in your league who thinks, oh, yeah, even more targets for Olave now, even more opportunities. No Shaheed. Olave's going to get 15 targets a game. Yeah, that maybe, but to what end? What's that going to result in? They don't have a good scoring offense, and defense is key on Olave. I would almost look to sell him. Could you get Roma Dunze for Chris Olave? Could you get Jalen Waddle for Chris Olave? I would, and I know that I just named two situations that aren't that much better than the Saints, but they are better. They are better. Maybe not the Dolphins. They're not better. But a Roma Dunze, especially after a goose egg this past week, I would be willing to go back and take a shot on that. Zay Flowers. Hell, you might be able to get Zay Flowers plus. T. Higgins. I don't know. Take a shot. I wouldn't hate moving off of Olave if you can. That's for anybody. And then, let's see, Browns against the Jets or Lions against the Commanders this week. Both should be fine. The Browns have the more talented unit. Detroit's not far behind. They're very good on defense as well. The Browns are on the road, I will say that. Are the Lions on the road as well, or are the Lions at home? Where is this game? It's in Washington. But it's a revenge game for Detroit. I'm sure you all remember Washington was the one who knocked the number 1 seed Lions out of the playoffs last year. I always like looking for these types of angles. Always these random little intangibles that I maybe think could be the X factor in ultimately making a decision. Not only does Detroit probably have revenge on their minds after Washington bounced them from the postseason when they had Super Bowl aspirations, but now it's Marcus Mariota instead of Jaden Daniels. They're not going to have Terry McLaurin. They're banged up in other places on defense as well. Washington is limping right now. I might say Detroit. The Browns are the more talented unit, but the Lions are not far behind. And I think there are intangibles in this matchup against Washington. They're going to want to come out and they're going to want to bite those kneecaps, as Dan Campbell had famously said years ago. I might take the Lions with revenge on their minds against a broken Washington offense. I think the Lions are going to want to kick the crap out of them. After getting knocked out of the postseason. I'm sure they've had that game circled for a while. I would if I was a member of the team. And then as far as start-sit questions, of this group, it's a little too early to make these calls. We just don't have practice reports, injury updates, all that good stuff. I wouldn't play Purdy in his first game back against a good Rams pass rush. I wouldn't play Goff on the road against Washington. Yes, it's a favorable matchup, but I'll take their defense, not Goff. It comes down to Caleb versus Danny Dimes. Caleb just had a crazy good game against the Bengals and gets another favorable matchup against the Giants. That's probably where I would go. Let's see if Caleb can spin it into 2 strong performances in a row. Dimes is in London, or is it Berlin? It's a Germany game against Atlanta this week. Atlanta's got a decent pass rush. And the Colts offense looked mortal this past week for the first time, so let's maybe see them bounce back before we go back to them. I'll say Caleb, but my answer could change. It's still early in the week. And then no, I would probably play Tet McMillan against the Saints at home. I'll take a shot on the. I'll take a shot on him. DJ Moore is not his team's wide receiver 1. I just got done talking about Chris Olave. I'm not super enthusiastic about him rest of the way. Keenan Allen is on a downtick right now. I would probably play Ted McMillan in a bounce back spot at home. Team's clear cut wide receiver 1 in a good matchup. Yeah. Okay. It was a fun active trade deadline. Do I think Isaiah Davis has relevance next year? I don't see why Breece Hall would re-sign with the Jets. It sounded like he wanted to get traded. And then the Jets went and sold all their young defensive talent. So I got to imagine Breece Hall's next contract is coming from another team that isn't the Jets. So yeah, Isaiah Davis could have value next year. He's absolutely worth a hold in Dynasty for sure. It's unfortunate. We were hoping, if you have Isaiah Davis in Dynasty or keeper leagues or whatever, even in redraft, to be honest, of course we were rooting for a Breece Hall trade. We want to see if he can do anything, can do something with an opportunity. Now we just got to wait a little bit longer. Still a hold in Dynasty. If I would say Breece Hall's chances of being back with the Jets next year are what? Maybe 5% if the Jets decide to give him a fat contract and he can't say no to. It would be bad business on the Jets' part, but, at the end of the day, a player wants to get paid as much as they possibly can. They'll take money even in a bad environment if it's by far the most money that they are being offered. If that's the case, then Breece is back, but it sounded like he wanted to get traded today. The Jets were open to moving him. Nobody wanted to meet their demands. I got to imagine Breece walks after this year. And then, yeah, Isaiah Davis will have his chance. He'll have to compete with Braylon Allen whenever Braylon Allen comes back healthy. But, yeah, Davis is going to have an opportunity, I would think, in 2026. There's no way they can spend premium resources on a running back. They have so many needs now. They need a quarterback. They need key pieces on defense. They need offensive line help. They need another wide receiver alongside Garrett Wilson. Like, running back is like the 40th priority on the Jets' wish list this year. Like, so far down the list. So, yeah, Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen, I would think, should both be viable next year. And we'll see which one rises to the top. And then instead of trading Keenan Allen, if Jacoby's available, then yeah, I would pick him up. If it's Dynasty, feel free to spend a solid amount of FOB because, these are deep leagues. These are deep rosters. The talent pool on waivers is not going to be as widespread as a redraft league. So, however much FOB you have left, 30% of it, like, you can splurge in Dynasty. That's the beauty of the waiver wire in Dynasty. You can go nuts on spending FOB because the waiver wire, the talent pool is so thin, or it's thinner anyway. Yeah, however much fab you want to spend, I think is appropriate. But yes, I would grab Jacoby Brissett. He could be the starter the rest of the way. Could be the starter the rest of the season. In fact, I picked up Jacoby Brissett in a redraft or in a dynasty rebuild. I should absolutely try to sell that guy. Okay, I got Max's super questions. I got Jay's questions. Should you start Jaylen Warren or Courtland Sutton in the I'm going to Jaylen Warren. He's a top 15 running back probably rest of the way. And, Courtland Sutton has been a little quieter recently. He caught a 30-yard touchdown in a tough matchup against Houston. That was great. One catch. Salvaged his day because it was his only catch. I'm not giving up on Sutton entirely the rest of the way, but he's been kind of on a little bit of a downward trend these past few weeks, while Jaylen Warren has been on an upward trend. I'm playing Jaylen Warren. I'm playing Jaylen Warren until the wheels fall off, man. I'm playing Jaylen Warren until I get to the fantasy semifinals in Week 16, and then it's kind of a tough matchup against Detroit. But if I ride the wave and get there with Jaylen Warren, then who's to say I take him out of my lineup even then? I'm playing Jaylen Warren probably every week from here on out. Unless you have Jahmyr Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor and Quinshon Judkins and Rico Dowdle. And even then, it's like, how do I get Jaylen Warren into my lineup? I would start Jaylen Warren. I always encourage people to come back later in the week for my other live streams on Thursday and Saturday for start, sit, help when we have practice reports, injury updates, all that good stuff. That could, in fact, always change my answer for early start, sit questions. Okay, moving along. Do you trade Metcalf for Warren? I wouldn't hate that. Who do you have? You have CD, you have Nico. I'm scrolling back up to get to pick it up. You have CD, you have Nico. Yeah, I mean, you would be a little thin at wide receiver at that point. I would maybe see if you could trade, one, if not both of your Seattle running backs to get a wide receiver in return. But, you're trying to win a championship. I think I would rather have Jaylen Warren than DK Metcalf right now. So, yes, I think I would do that deal. Because even if you can't get wide receiver help, you still have CeeDee Lamb, you still have Nico Collins. You can kind of fill a third wide receiver spot or a flex spot as needed with, your DJ Moores and Hollywood Browns and Keenan Allens. Yes, I would do that. I would do that. I would do that trade if you can. This looks like an did your question maybe not post? I don't see a question. I see your league format. Thank you for sharing that, but I don't see your question. Feel free to follow up with maybe your question didn't post. Feel free to follow up and I can answer it. Would I trade Jaylen Warren and Hunter Henry for Kyron? To acquire Kyron? No. I would hold Jaylen Warren. Like, if you have Jaylen Warren, I would just hold Jaylen Warren. If you have Kyron Williams, I feel like you can be the one to say, give me Jaylen Warren plus. And I would absolutely be interested in doing something like that. Hunter Henry, I think you asked about Hunter Henry earlier to drop him for Gainwell. I would just do that. I would just do that and let it lie. I don't want to give up Jaylen Warren. If I have Jaylen Warren, I want to keep Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is insanely valuable to me just based on his schedule over the next 5 or 6 weeks. Yep. The same guy who had Warren has Devontae. I mean, sure, hell yeah. So just on top of that, like, sure, offer DK Metcalf and Kenneth Walker, like, whatever. If you can make that happen, obviously don't give up Taylor or Henry, but if you can make that, like, if you can turn DK and Walker, or even both Seattle running backs, who cares, into Jaylen Warren and Devontae Smith, I'd be all for that. I'd be send it. Like, send it now. Like, I'd be all for you making that happen. 100%. Yeah, I did not realize Jalen Polk was with the Saints, and he would reunite with Penix had he ended up in Atlanta. The Saints had more of a need at wide receiver, but he's back on it. Now he's on injured reserve. I don't know if he's eligible to come back from IR or if it's just straight up season ending. Let's take a look. Season ending shoulder injury. Yeah, it just, things have not materialized with Polk in the early portion of his career, unfortunately. Give up Rico and Ayuk to get A.J. Brown. You have decent running back depth. I'm a visual learner. I like to know who those running backs are. I mean, if it's, like I mentioned, it's not inconceivable in a redraft league that you ended up with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, and Quinshon Judkins this year in the draft. And a Jaylen Warren. Like, it's not inconceivable. Like, if that's your depth, if that's the stud group that you have, and you can get A.J. Brown and Ayuk, who for me is he's a zero at this point of the season. I don't think even if Ayuk comes back, he's not going to be fantasy relevant. Maybe he'll be fantasy relevant in 2026. He suffered a major knee injury last year, multiple ligaments torn. There's a reason that we don't really have a timeline for him still to come back. But if you have Gibbs and Taylor and Quinshon Judkins and Jaylen Warren, maybe you picked up Kareem Hunt off of waivers or whatever. I'm trying to think of just like if you've got a strong collection of running backs and you can part with Rico and you could use the wide receiver help, okay, fine. But in a vacuum 1-for-1, I would rather have Rico than A.J. Brown. Like, Rico to me is a top 12 guy rest of the way, at worst top 15. A.J. Brown has been a top 6-7 wide receiver at times. I don't know that he's still that. He might be more in the top 15 to 18 range, and I don't think that's an indictment on A.J. Brown. The Eagles' offense has been kind of weird this year, specifically their passing offense, and now A.J. Brown has missed a game or two with injury, so, he's not that slam dunk bona fide top 8, top 6 guy that he has been. So in a vacuum, I'd rather have Rico Dowdle. But again, if you are trading away a piece of like a strength of your team to address a weakness, if running back is a robust strength of yours and you can really use the wide receiver help, then okay, fine. Like, okay, sure, fine. So it depends. Like how strong are those running backs and how needy are you at wide receiver? Like how much would A.J. Brown help? Because I quite like Rico. If he wants picks, I mean, throw a second-round pick at him. I wouldn't throw a first, but if you could throw a second-round pick to complete that deal, I would be in favor of it. If you could do, Metcalf, Walker, Charbonnet, if you have to throw both at him, throw both at him. And a second-round pick for Jaylen Warren and Devontae Smith, sign me up. Sign me up. Because I just, for Dynasty, A.J. Brown could get traded by the Eagles in the offseason, and then all of a sudden Devontae Smith is the team's clear-cut, bona fide, no question wide receiver 1. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the vibes with the Eagles and A.J. Brown has been weird this year, has been weird this offseason. They're winning games, and he's still putting cryptic messages on social media. So, it's not inconceivable that A.J. Brown is not an Eagle after this year. So I'm all for acquiring Devontae Smith in Dynasty. I am all for it. Yeah. Metcalf, Walker, Charbonnet, second-round pick for Warren, Devontae. Yeah, I'd be in on that. Hopefully you don't have to include both Walker and Charbonnet if you include a second-round pick, but if push comes to shove, I would still do it. We are at the end of the chat. Oh, boy. A lot of people jumping in today. I appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out today. There was quite a solid audience, and I thank everybody for their patience as I worked through a lot of different questions, a lot of member questions, a lot of supers. I know that it took a little bit of time for me to get to you. I appreciate your patience. Again, you can get questions fast-tracked. You can get questions answered sooner if you are interested in becoming a member of the channel. Again, first link in the description of this live stream and all videos and streams on the channel will get you fast-tracked responses all season long, not just this stream or any one specific stream, all season long. you'll get fast-tracked responses. That'll, then you don't have to wait as long if you are interested. We are at the end of the chat. I can hang on for a little bit longer. But in the meantime, I will say thank you to all of my members. I saw Nino. I saw Evan. I saw Sport Dog. I saw Bobby. I saw Greg. I saw Rojo. I saw Nemo. I saw Jay. I think that was all of my members. I think that's all the members I saw. So appreciate all my members. Shout out to Max and Kyle. Very generous with the supers. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support. And everybody for coming in and taking the time to hang out tonight. I will be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, ahead of who do we have this week on Thursday Night Football? Why am I forgetting this? Raiders Broncos. Oh boy, that's okay. That should be fun. Not the most sparkling matchup, but we get to watch Brock Bowers go nuclear again, maybe, although it is a tough defense, so we'll see what happens. I will be back 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, ahead of Thursday Night Football, talking shop, ahead of Broncos, Raiders. Anything anybody needs, we can talk then. I will also be live on Saturday, start, sit, help, 5 p.m. Eastern. Taking your start-sit questions, ultimately figuring out your lineup for Week 10. Probably no live stream on Sunday morning because of the Berlin game between the Colts and the Falcons, but I will be available in Discord for anybody who has any last-minute questions. Second link in the description of this live stream and all videos and streams on the channel. Evergreen free invite to join the Discord. You can access me over there if I am not live. And, of course, you can always ask questions in the form of comments on my YouTube videos. But I think that'll do it for me this evening. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Best of luck with your waiver claims. Again, one more time, Devin Singletary, Christian Watson, Colston Loveland, top options at each of their positions in all likelihood. Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, if you could use some quarterback help. Luke Musgrave in deeper leagues where you need a tight end. All viable options. So obviously, best of luck with your waiver wire pickups. And then the Browns should be a good pickup. Honestly, the Carolina Panthers are a decent defensive pickup going against the New Orleans Saints at home as well if you miss on the Browns. Good luck with your waiver claims. Enjoy your Tuesday evening. I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.